Oleg, I'm super excited for this week's episode of the Silicon Valley podcast. Before diving into the questions, can you give us an overview of your career up until this point?
Sure. Hi, Shawn. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm a tech entrepreneur and manager based in Israel. I have witnessed the sunset and the sunrise of this industry multiple times from dot-com bubble up until now. In my previous job, I was a founding CTO of Global-e, which had a 4 billion Nasdaq IPO in 2021 and is currently trading higher. So after successfully exiting, I'm all in my new venture called Trueli, which is a consumer app. I'm both investor and the CEO of this company. So I'm just all in this headspace in this business.
Oh, fantastic. Now, before we go into your current company that you're working on right now, let's go back to the beginning of your career. Can you tell us your experience early on during that .com, that bubble, that first time when you were the CTO? What was that experience like?
Well, that was quite funny. Back in times, it was like the very early days of this industry. People had no clue about the business, about the product, about the monetization strategy, about nothing. Just let's try get things done and get some investors on board. That's all. So it was a great experience for me to understand without spending my own money.
That's always the best, right?
What it takes to build a successful company, what it takes to create a good product, how much of involvement do you need as a founder or as an executive in the business, in all sides of business. And I realized that being a tech executive is not necessarily about tech. It's also about business. It's also about understanding all sides of the venture end to end. You don't have to be an expert everywhere, but you have to really understand the business that you are in. Essentially, that was the main takeaway from the dot-com bubble for me as an individual, I would say.
I
Yeah.
am curious about that because for the .com bubble, you had all these young, right out of college, or maybe didn't even go to college, and then you had these people from Accenture, tenured in their career and their experience, coming together to build something that no one had tried before. How are those social dynamics like in these companies?
The social dynamics, I don't think that it's actually changed before or after. Social dynamics, it's mainly about people who are there. For example, in my previous company, and definitely in that one, we have a strict no asshole policy. That's how it sounds like. That's official term. So as long as you actually enforce this policy, then you're in good shape. You have to come to work and enjoy it. Even at hard times, even if you are not in the best position from your business perspective or from your technical side, whatever, you have to enjoy coming to the team and working as a team. That's the social perspective. It doesn't mean you have to be the best friends with everyone, but you have to enjoy it. Otherwise, it won't fly for sure.
What were some of the lessons you learned from the .com crash that then you took with you from your career after that?
Number one is if you want to build a successful business, it has to be a successful business model and a successful product. There is no way you can build a product aimed at 12 years old kids with hope to monetize them when they grow up anymore. That used to be the case at the peak of the dot-com bubble. And you obviously have to build a clear path to monetization. Otherwise, it won't fly either. We are not building a pyramid here. We're building a business, right? So that's the main takeaway. And you also have to know all sides of the business very well. You cannot limit yourself to your particular domain. If you are in finance, you need to understand the business. If you're in tech, you need to understand all operations and everything around you. Otherwise, you won't be able to deliver your job as well. That's very important because at the dot-com bubble, there was the first time when we experienced the lack of talent and we had to hire pretty much everyone. So as long as you can log into your computer, then you are good enough for your job, apparently. That cannot fly either, right? So you have to be able to take hard decisions, for example, and you need to be fit to replace pretty much everyone in the company. Otherwise, at least temporarily. You have to have this confidence that you are fit to do any job in the company.
Now,
That's
is that for when the company's very early stage,
very early
or is
stage.
that anytime?
No, no, no. It's not any time. There is no way you can be a big corporate CEO and doing every job in the company. At the early stages, you have to be able to do any job in the company. But that's where the risk is the greatest. When you do bad hiring decisions, for example, or firing decisions, that's where the impact is the greatest. Look at it as a simple numbers game. Let's say you are a 5 persons company or 10 persons company, then if you have one person who is not the right for their job, then essentially you will have a 20% impact or 10% impact statistically, right? So yet, the impact is much higher than if you are a 10,000 people big team, right? So there is a lot of redundancy that you can afford as a business, which is a great thing to do, but not at early stages.
With that, then, do you think, 'cause at the very beginning, you'll hear so many investors say for early stage seed in that I invest in the team, they'll figure it out. Well, should an investor get to know the whole team? How well should the team get to know any new employee before bringing them into the team? Now that you say that, if there's 5 employees or four, a fifth person doesn't impact it 20%, it could impact it 30, 40, 50%. That's pretty powerful thing to think about.
Yeah, it is important for the Y team to understand to know every new hire. I think it's very important, but that sort of happens naturally because whenever you hire new people in the team, it's usually to, let's say you have a couple of interviews or 3 interviews maybe, and that pretty much covers most of the company already. Yeah, so
Now,
it just happens.
did you see anything change from pre-crash and post-crash in that time frame with hiring people, business models? How quickly did things adjust to kind of what it is now, I guess? Or has it gone even a couple of iterations in company development, company strategy, and that?
Well, I think that we are not at the perfect shape at this moment, at this point in time. Maybe we're getting better after yet another bubble that has almost hit us in 2021, 2022. So it's never reached the nonsense that we had at the dot-com bubble, right? But still, the money there was a lot of money on the table. Obviously, investors had no choice other than investing in stock market and in VCs and all this ecosystem, because otherwise they will not get even 5% return on their money, right? That's therefore there was a lot of money on the table, and there were no political crisis before, say, the Putin's invasion to Ukraine. So all this just was not there. So there was a bit of another feeling of sky's the limit back then. So it sort of started to go back to the good old days of the dot-com bubble, but it hasn't reached it, luckily. I mean, I'm not very lucky that I wouldn't say they were lucky to have experienced everything that we have experienced over the last couple of years. But as an industry, strategically, I think we are very lucky that this sort of stopped. And now, in order to get any funding, and by the way, I'm experiencing it as a startup founder now. So if you want to raise any money, you have to come with a clear vision of your product, which has to be validated, it has to have the clear path to monetization. It has to have some basic traction at least, in a way. Otherwise, there is no way anyone will bet on your startup or on your business. So I think in that sense, we're sort of almost back to normal now. If this answers your question.
Yeah. So going back to after the dot-com crash, what did you do? What were the next businesses you're in, the next steps of your career?
Yeah, so after the dot-com bubble, I joined my first startup, which is still active, by the way. It's not like a massive success, but it's a good company doing very well here in Israel. So we spent about 5 years there in this company, and then I moved to another one, which is where I was at this time was a hired CEO, not a co-founder. So this company was a Web 2 thing, if you remember. It was in 2007. So in 2007, I was a part of the company called Sportingo. It was actually doing the user-generated content, and the business model was largely about affiliates and partnerships. And it was a very promising startup. It was actually one of the top 3 promising startups here in Israel. Unfortunately, we had another crisis in 2008, which actually finished this company. And then I joined another startup as a founder at this time, which was doing the content marketing product. It was a great product, but I was stupid.
Okay, I'm curious when you make the comment, it was a great product, but I was stupid. Go elaborate into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, we built a great product for the content marketing, which is where any client could send any marketing or PR message pretty much to any newspaper, like digital newspaper, at the predefined location, at the premium location below the article. And the reason for that is that we actually made sure that we create a quality content that has overcome any objections from the chief editor, for example. So we have actually added more valuable content to the newspaper, and therefore they didn't object for us to embed it just below the editorial articles. So we created a product which has produced about 30 times more metrics from CTR perspective, from click-through perspective than any competition out there.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was our largest stupidity. So instead of raising money and investing it in improving the product, in automating the product, in investing it in the basic machine learning, which we could have done back then already, we just wasted all the money on sales, like hiring salespeople before we even tried to sell it ourselves. Meaning, if you look at the top 10 founder mistakes, we've done all of them.
So wait, what are some of the top 10 founder mistakes? You just mentioned one right there, hiring a sales team and not having the founders do the sales first. What are some of
Yeah.
the other mistakes and what happened to that company?
Well, some of the other mistakes are not investing in the product, just trying to do stuff before you find the actual product market fit. And that was part of the, I think there were the same part, 2 parts of the same problem. Hiring salespeople before you sell yourself, and not investing in the product is pretty much the same problem, is avoiding the pain of looking for the actual product market fit at scale. That is the main bottom line. That what kills the business. And actually, we just ran out of money, and that's it. That's what happened to the company. So we just pulled the plug in a few years. That's it. Nothing happened to this company. It's just shut down.
What happened to the technology and how did you know when it was time to shut it down versus, I mean, why not go out and try to raise more capital to grow it, or was it just too late?
It was too late. We lost the momentum, wasted a lot of money. We just couldn't afford running this business anymore from our own out-of-pocket money. We just didn't budget it well. We had very little sales, meaning revenue. There was revenue, but it was negligible, essentially. And it was just too late. We had to take this decision much earlier. We had to raise money, as I said, much earlier. We had to stop paying salaries to the salespeople and paying them to product and technology people instead, and doing all the sales ourselves. And we had to go and do the footwork and speak with other clients, speak with investors, and speak with as many of them as possible, actually, to get all the feedback that is valuable and just integrating it to the business instead of wasting time and money. It's just about waste, nothing more. I still believe that this product has an unrealized potential. I don't think that it actually exists even now. I don't think that the market leaders have implemented anything like that yet, after almost 15 years, but I wouldn't bet on creating yet another venture that would do more of the same.
I'm curious about that. I mean, it sounds like you're just gonna let the startup be in the startup graveyard forever.
Yeah, it is in the startup graveyard. So I didn't have any appetite to dig it out from the grave anymore. Yeah, so after this startup was dead, I joined another company, which is unfortunately the binary options company, but we can talk about it if you want. And spent 10 months there, I think. And then I was lucky enough to join so far the biggest success that I've seen, which is Global-e, essentially.
Okay, before talking about the biggest success,
Yeah.
I'm curious about the binary options, but even before that, I am wondering the
Mhm.
benefits of self-funding a company versus taking outside capital. I've noticed some founders, they have a successful exit and then they say, the next one, I'm going to self-fund it. When they self-fund it, they lack, I want to say either direction or push or these other resources that the outside capital came with. And because of that, they're not as successful with the next venture as the first one. What's your experience and your thoughts of some people taking outside capital versus funding it themselves when they are capable of funding it themselves?
So here's the trick. In my current company, I haven't taken any outside money yet, but I started to speak with investors long before spending my own money, way before spending a first dollar. I've spoken with several investors, hoping to get their view on how fundable is the product. If I need to make any adjustments, would it take for them to invest if I ask for money at some point? And that's what helped us actually to build the product the way it looks now. Essentially, you don't have to take the money, you just need to speak with people and to be open to any feedback and to be ready to incorporate it to your product. So that's the
Oh,
ideal situation. So at some point, I don't think that there is a way of getting to the successful IPO, for example, or to successful M&A or any other, say, let's call it end game without external money at all. I don't believe it's possible at scale unless you are building something very niche and just cash out fast. If you are building like a massive consumer brand, for example, which is something that I'm doing now, I will have to raise money for sure multiple times. But the more I can delay it, the better. Because running it at your own expense gives you the luxury to consider different points of view. You are not under pressure to implement aggressive strategies. You are not pressed by investors who just need to cash out in 7 years or 10 years or whatever their fund lifetime is. You just don't have this pressure, and this pressure can kill you in early stages. Because these guys may have dozens of companies in their portfolio companies, and their strategy is basically getting a 1 out of 10, pay 30x, and then they're in good shape. And this is my only venture. I'm not one of 30, right?
well, hopefully you're the one of 30. So
Yeah, exactly.
with the going back, I really liked how you mentioned, not needing to take their money, but taking their advice. How different or could the advice also come from an advisory board, or is the advice from an advisory board different than that you get from the investors, or should you get both so they complement each other so they fill holes? What's your thoughts of advisory boards and VCs and even, I guess, product markets or surveys to
Yeah.
your potential audience as well, doing all that from very early on or even before doing anything?
Yeah, everything is valuable, everything. But the advisory board is limited to their point of view. You cannot have 100 people advisory board, right? So there is no point. But you can talk with 100 investors and you can talk with 1,000 clients, consumers, or whatever the business model is, right? So basically, it unlocks you much more points of view that can be very valuable for your business going forward. So you need to take any advice. Absolutely anything. You can find gold in anything. You can talk with the bartender in a bar and may get some insights from what the bartender thinks, seriously.
Okay, now you'd mentioned also binary trading. You also mentioned being in the biggest exit or success. Not sure which path you want to go, but let's take the conversation
We can
one.
start with binary options if you want. It will be
All
quick.
right, tell us about that. Was it a good? Was it bad? What was your experience there? You said 10 months, so something had to happen in a short amount of time.
Yeah, well, when I joined the company, I just didn't understand really well what is it about. It looked like a legitimate business. It was backed by legitimate investors. I did the background checks and it looked legit. But when I started working in the company in just a couple of months max, I realized that I would say, I'm not saying criminal, although in some territories it is illegal, apparently, happened to be, but that's just not right. Actually, the binary option is about, let's say, probably the worst type of gambling that they can think of. While you are coming to a casino, you know that you are coming to lose your money, right? You are just betting on whatever red 35 or whatever. I'm not sure if it exists, but let's say you bet on something and then you are hoping that you will win. You know that it's just pure luck. There is nothing else. When you are coming to the binary option company as a client, you are being fooled to think that you are a very smart investor. It's not like you are betting on something that's your smart decision. So they make you believe that that's your smart decision. That, for example, why the option is binary, because it's a binary choice, actually. The outcome is binary. Essentially, you can bet on something like, what will the euro dollar currency exchange pair do in the next day or 60 seconds, for example? Will it go up or down? If it goes up, then you are good. If it goes down, then you're bad, or vice versa. So it's as good as gambling, essentially, but you're thinking that as if you are a smart investor, which is not the case, obviously. So I realized that that's not something that I want to be a part of. I'm not something that I will never be proud of. I'm here to do something good, and I'm not here to do something really, really bad. So I've started to just look for other opportunities. As I said before, I ran completely out of money in my previous venture, and therefore I also didn't have any valid idea that I could explore myself. I'm an entrepreneur. I have to do something new. I have to do something cool, some cool stuff, and start things from scratch. So I did not have any opportunity like that, and therefore I found the opportunity was which looked really good, which basically ticked all the boxes, which is basically coming as a founding CTO to the company, which had no product, pre-product, pre-everything, no nothing, just a Word document and investor presentation. And they did not have a CTO on board. Essentially, I was the founding CTO. Essentially, I was not formally a part of the founding team because I joined when they already raised the pre-seed funding. But I felt like a co-founder, as a technical co-founder. Essentially, that's what I was actually.
When there's a situation like that where someone comes into such a important role, but
Mhm.
they've already raised some funding, they've already kind of established, how does one go about negotiating their employee contract or negotiating? Because you're key to the team, but at the same time, you weren't there from day one. So how do you go about discussing that?
I think it depends on who you meet and who is the other side of the table. When I met the guys, I didn't feel like I had to negotiate anything, and I didn't feel like we are in a zero-sum game here, as if I win, they lose, or vice versa. That wasn't the case. I felt the chemistry from day one. I really liked them, and basically I didn't try to negotiate something way high, and they didn't try to push me down. That just didn't happen. So all the terms that we discussed, I just asked for something reasonable, and they just accepted it in the 5 minutes, and that's it. That was the negotiation.
I like how you said 5 minutes. Was it really that quick?
Maybe not 5 minutes, but it was just one conversation, essentially. That's it. We had lots of conversation because obviously before I joined the company, we had lots of conversations, and I really wanted to understand what is the thing that they're building and what is the expectation from me as a CTO, and what is the ideal world product that they want to get, what is the timeline, when exactly do they want to do what is the strategy going forward, and so forth. So when I realized, when I actually got understanding of all my questions, then we got to the negotiation part, which was very quick.
So how did that company do? Where is it now? And also kind of curious about the decision of going IPO where you did.
Yeah, so I spent about 6.5 years with the company. So obviously from the stage when it was, as I said, a Word document and an assignment to launch this Word document in production in 5 months, including hiring the team and implementing it together with the team and everything, and then taking it to the actual market all the way to the 500 million valuation. That's when I left, essentially. So I left about 1 year before the actual IPO. That was a pre-IPO round. And so the IPO itself happened after I left the company already. So obviously I knew that what's going on, and I knew that the IPO is very likely to happen very soon. So that's something that also gave me another tailwind to go and to implement my new venture. I've taken it as a educated decision, basically.
Okay, so question there. Most people I would think would stick around to post IPO, go through that journey. Why leave before? And then also, what were your thoughts maybe the 6 months before leaving? Because there has to be, as a CTO, a huge transition of finding the replacement, not to disrupt the company.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, first of all, the way the company was structured is not the strict hierarchy when you have like the one CTO who is the commander-in-chief of anything. We had a bit different structure. So by the time when I left, we had split in the management team. We had different direct responsibilities of the specific things. For example, in my direct responsibilities, like my day job was doing whatever it takes to actually install the product with the clients. So whatever from the integration technology, from being part of these negotiations with the big tickets, for example, setting up the solutions engineering domain and the sales engineers and all these domains, settling the R&D center in the US, for example, something that we didn't have. That was all my job. I was not, for example, I wasn't involved with managing the team in Israel. Most of it, half of the team in Israel was not reporting to me at all at this point. And then when I made an announcement that I'm going to leave, and basically it's taken us almost a year of actual fading out from all my responsibilities. We just did it in a best way, I think, that is doable, essentially. So it was not a hit to the company at all. And the last thing I would want to do is to make a hit to this particular company, right? So we did it right. So we found all the replacements. So we just spread out all the responsibilities with multiple people. So it's not like I had to transfer it to one person and say good luck. That was not the case.
Okay, so transfer goes well, you step back, you start your own company, this new endeavor. What is it exactly? What would entice you so much to leave this, 500 million at the time valuated company, about to go public in the next year to start your own venture? What was the idea? What was the spark that encouraged you at that moment to do it and not wait another 2 years, 3 years?
Well, first of all, waiting for another 2 or 3 years would likely mean that I would stay there probably forever. It's from my perspective as an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur, no matter what. So I'm just trying to do new things, and I love doing new stuff from scratch. For me, it was like more of a honey trap than an opportunity. So when I realized that I have another,
I'm just wondering if any of your colleagues, if they hear this interview, they'll go, wait.
for me, for me personally, I am an entrepreneur and I have to start things from scratch. Most people don't need it. It's probably abnormal. I'm not saying that it's a normal thing to have, to want, right? So like normal people want to have like big corporate work, being a big boss and having good salary and terms and like guaranteed income for the rest of their life. That's what the most people want, which is okay. Perfectly fine. That's a human nature and that's perfectly fine. And also I don't know if I would have a courage to leave if I wouldn't have this particular idea that actually scratched me, right? So I just didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm leaving because I don't want a honey trap. No, that wasn't the case. I just had a specific idea, which was essentially something that was itching me because it was like missing on my own phone in this case. I
Tell us
just
about it. What is this idea? Or are you in stealth mode right now?
no, it's not stealth mode anymore. So basically, the idea is that whenever you meet with other people, like any social event, like a birthday or wedding or football game or any gathering, you just go out for beers with guys, anything. Normally, people take photos, all of them. So if it's a restaurant or winery or a bar, people, it's like a beautiful place, then people would usually take photos of the dishes or of each other, of the nature, or whatever. And then they would normally ask for other people to share the photos of this event, and you would be expected to share them in WhatsApp, Telegram, in iMessage, whatever you are using, right? So first of all, you have to select these photos manually, and then you have to expect other people to send it to you. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that all these memories are buried. They are buried on your phone. Your own photos are buried in your own cluttered gallery. And the photos that other people send you, they are buried in all these endless WhatsApp chats. Every WhatsApp chat has 14 text messages per photo, for example. And it's also mixed with memes and screenshots and jokes and all this stuff, right? So now, when you have celebrated a birthday, usually you would celebrate it with people who you know in real life. So you have very long chat with all of them. So now, if you want to actually relive your memory, how great was it to celebrate your birthday, then there is no way you can easily find these photos. You will have to look for it in your gallery, then you have to wait a minute. Was it in what chat? Was it a group chat? Maybe it was a one-on-one, maybe, oh no, maybe someone shared the link to Google Drive. No, actually, it was all of them. It was Google Drive and these 5 chats and my gallery as well. And it was on another phone, actually. All right. So,
That sounds
so
about right. Yep.
gone. So it's gone. So number one, the product solves this particular pain, which most people who want to be social and to exchange moments that they experience in real life together, everyone which actually sees this profile, social profile, they experience this problem. So that's number one. Number two, not all your memories are social, meaning there are some memories that you just go out with a dog, or maybe you take a photo of a beautiful sunset, nature, you name it. So your gallery, your personal gallery, is full of this stuff, and it's all buried. It's also buried, right? So it also has, your gallery is also full of screenshots and document scans and other things, right? So obviously your native gallery, like Google or Apple, depending on if you're Android or iPhone, would suggest you memories, right? But the problem is that the memories that they suggest, they don't get to the resolution of the actual life events, and they definitely cannot solve the problem of cross-platformness. Meaning, if you are celebrating birthday and half of your friends are on iPhone and the other half of your friends are on Android, then you're done. I mean, there is no single product that can close the gap between the two, essentially. So that's the thing. So basically, we're building a product that would solve the problem of lost memories in the overwhelming digital clutter that we have now. So the ambition is essentially building an equivalent of WhatsApp, I would say. If you look at WhatsApp, the problem that WhatsApp solved about 15 years ago, roughly, was the cross-platform instant messaging. No matter where you are in the world or on which phone you are on, you can always deliver your text message or going forward the image message, MMS type, if you remember that thing, right? So that's the problem that is solved, and that's great, but it doesn't solve the problem of the actual capturing of memories. You know, the 57,000 photos are taken every second in this world, every second. So, and it's getting worse. And it's getting worse, and we'll be lost in this, and we'll be lost in this clutter. So that's what I'm solving.
So, like with this new company, how is it right now finding talent and recruiting
Mhm.
for a company? I mean, now you have access to the global engineer market. How is recruiting when you're an early stage company? How is it recruiting at different stages of the company's life cycle?
Yeah, so now we are obviously in a very different world than we've been in a dot-com bubble time. So lots of things have changed since then. So we do have access to the global talent. We can speak with the best people no matter where they are on the planet. For example, if I know that my target market is actually the English-speaking world, and then going forward the Western world and then the rest of the globe, that's at least my hypothesis right now. And I'm based close to Europe. I'm in Israel, so I think that it makes sense for me to hire people in London for that. I can do that. So if I know that the best talent that can deliver great results as a app developer is in Ukraine, because I can definitely find the same level of talent in Israel. No question about that. But it will just cost me twice. So why would I pay twice if I can hire the same level of great developers and pay and just bear half of the costs as a company? So I can do that. So basically, I can balance my requirement as a company founder of getting the best possible talent and managing the budget. I'm not going back to my top 10 founders mistake when I just hire a salesman, right? In Israel and hoping for the best. Well, I'm not there anymore. So we are investing a lot in product. We are investing only in product now. There is no other investment that they're doing. Even the small budget they were spending on social media is just for experiments and just trying to acquire the right audience, to find this audience. And we're spending some budget for getting people for their user interviews, for example, like finding the real people and finding them via the specific platforms that allow that, and finding them via social media campaigns, see what resonates. But that's only about products. It's not about distribution at this point. It's just about experimentations.
How much time do you think early stage companies should use for interviewing the potential customers?
Well, I think it would be hard to answer this question about how much time. It's probably about what is the expected result. Like you should do multiple cycles. Essentially, you speak with the customers, then you implement the whatever insights that you get, and you do another cycle, and then you do for example, the acquisition campaign, and you see if what are your metrics, if they're going up or down. And once you see that the metrics are going up, for example, whatever your KPIs are, whatever your North Star metrics are, it's up to you, obviously, to decide. Then you will start to feel confidence that it's time to scale. Basically, you can actually bet on this particular product or bet on this particular strategy and invest a bit more and do another cycle. I mean, then you will get better stats and you will do another cycle. So it's basically running a startup is running a set of experiments, essentially, at least in the consumer world. In a B2B, it's a bit different. There is no way you can do multiple cycles of experimentation. They will just kick you out. So it's a bit different.
Now, Oleg, we're running up on time. If there's any takeaway advice, takeaway knowledge from your years of experience that you'd like to give our audience, I mean, now's the time to do it. And also, if anyone wants to find out more about what you're working on, what's the best way to go about doing it?
Well, my main takeaway from my entire career is investing in product and investing in not necessarily the money, but also mainly your attention. You have to know your product really well from all aspects, technical, business aspects, operations, everything. So that's the main takeaway if you want to build something successful. That's the main one, really. So, and that's how you should approach it. You should speak with experts. You should speak with people who have experienced it. You should actually find the actual product market fit. That's the definition. Whatever it takes to find the product market fit, the way you would define it, and the more gray hair you have, probably the better your definition would look like. There is no secret source. Unfortunately, you do have to have your own experience, but the more you can capitalize on someone else's mistakes, the better.
Fantastic. And if anyone wants to learn more about what you're working on, what's the best way to go about doing that?
It's just you can go to Trueli website or reach out to me on LinkedIn, email, WhatsApp, anything. I'm happy to leave all my contact details and obviously the link to my website, to my LinkedIn page, or whatever. I would love to be in touch.
Fantastic. We'll have that link in the show notes. And for our audience, well, I'm not the host of the Silicon Valley podcast. I'm an investment banker focused on mergers, acquisitions, growth capital. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Shawn Flynn and subscribe to the podcast. Not only that, but share it with your network. Leave a review on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. And with that, Ole, I want to thank you for taking the time to be on this week's episode of the Silicon
Thanks
Valley
for having me.
podcast.
Thanks for having me, Shawn. Much appreciated. Great speaking with you. Thanks a lot.